to convince the communities that entrepreneurism is an exciting way to grow both personally, but also grow businesses. And it's beginning to take off.
On the flip side, we talk about those early stage pre-seed investments on the increase. Later stage investment, later stage venture capital, a little bit of a challenge.
Yes, it slowed down as people were getting into the Series B and C. There nationally, it was off. So I think that what we saw was a lot of people at the early stages willing to take some risk and get into business and take ideas to market. But there was a bit of a slowdown on the high end of venture capital, not just in Indiana, but really around the country.
Yeah, Chris, in terms of where that activity was in 2020 and perhaps will be again this year, the life sciences accounted for about 60% of all venture activity in the state. So the life sciences remain pretty hot here.
Yeah, and that's an exciting story, frankly, for Indiana, because we've been working hard at trying to get more life science deals moving, and Indiana really started to take off in life sciences, a big jump in 2020, and I think 2021 is going to look very good too.
Yeah, as you look at the report overall, I would say it's positive. We've touched on those positives, but to put it in perspective, Indiana still has a long road to hoe when it comes to venture capital, where it needs to be to fuel businesses. Give us some perspective on where Indiana is with respect to the rest of the Midwest and country.
Yeah, if we start just with the Midwest, Gary, there are seven states in the what's called the Great Lakes area, and Indiana is third from the bottom. So the reality is we've had some significant movement over the last 3 or 4 years in Indiana, but we have a very, very long way to go. And then if you take a look at the Great Lakes states in comparison to national, we're at the bottom. So we still have a long, long way to go. Indiana has a long, long way to go for us to really jump other states and be where we should be in terms of innovation, startup, and venture capital investment.
All right, final question for you, Chris. Big question. What's it going to take for Indiana to get there? Business climate seems to be positive, cost of living, those types of things. Is it policy? Is it support from government? What would you like to see happen to get Indiana where it needs to be, in your view?
That's a great question, Gary. And I think that what it is really we need our public sector leaders to recognize that we've got a rare opportunity to dramatically leapfrog other states. When you take a look at where Indiana was across a number of categories 15 years ago, we were in the bottom quartile across all the states in the country. Now, in many of those categories, we're in the top 10 states in the entire country. There is, frankly, no better place to start and grow a business than Indiana. We need to take that message out there. We need to triple down on what we're doing in terms of investment in entrepreneurial startup and in innovation growth.
Yep. Great perspective, as always, from Chris Lamoth, the CEO of Elevate Ventures. Venture activity on the rise, but a long way to go. Chris, it's always great to see you. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Good seeing you.
Well, on this week's Business and Beyond podcast, she's a trailblazer from a trailblazing family of educators. A fascinating and revealing conversation with DePaul University president, Dr. Lori White. She's the first woman and first person of color to lead DePaul, the only African-American university president in the state now. It's a role she takes very seriously, starting from her first visit to the DePaul campus and an aha moment when she toured Meharry Hall, looking at portraits of past presidents.
So you need to step forward and change the image that people have of college presidents. You need to be the first woman president. You need to be the first African-American president.
We will talk about Lori White, the trailblazer, also her singing talents, pink tennis shoes, and relationship with Condoleezza Rice. DePaul President Lori White on this week's Business and Beyond podcast. Go to Apple or wherever you get your podcast to subscribe. Up next, bridging the digital divide in rural Indiana, how the newly co-branded Tipmont WinTech is betting on a unique business model to boost broadband access and more. We get details from CEO Ron Holcomb. It's time to go inside innovation, brought to you by Allegion, pioneering safety. Well, it has been 2 years since Tipmont acquired Wintec, a Lafayette technology company, with the goal of building state-of-the-art fiber optic broadband throughout Tipmont's service area and perhaps beyond. Tipmont is Indiana's first REMC, perhaps the first in the country, to buy a high-tech company. And with more on this newly co-branded Tipmont Wintec and its technology play, pleased to be joined by CEO Ron Holcomb. And again, Ron, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
I mentioned this really is, and you made this acquisition of Wintec, a Lafayette company with a major data center. You made that in, I guess, the beginning of 2019. It was unique, is unique in that a nonprofit electric co-op buying a for-profit technology company. What was the thought process there?
So it was actually a marriage that worked on a number of levels. The first was we needed to build broadband infrastructure into the rural parts of our service territory. And our members and our customers have been very clear about the fact that they needed that kind of support. Building a broadband solution from the ground up is quite formidable. And we were looking for a way to be able to circumvent some of the difficulties of a startup. And Wintec was available as a potential partner. And then we also recognize that in the long run, the electric infrastructure is going to marry very much with broadband communication infrastructure as distributed assets become more available, like solar and storage and things like that, to be able to partner on that level as well. So it worked very well.
Yeah, and this data center at Wintec, I know, is very attractive to you. Since 2013, you say their revenues, their business has increased by 500%. Customers include Caterpillar, Saab, Wabash National. I think Purdue's involved there. So a lot of big name clients and an ongoing business that was doing very well.
Exactly. So what's interesting about Wintec is that I like to say we punch way above our weight class. So people in our region understand that if they're looking for the most robust solution, the most secure solution available, Wintec has that. And that's why we've been fortunate enough to attract some of the companies you just mentioned.
We'll talk about what this means potentially, maybe already means, for rural broadband. That is such a huge issue all over the country, but in particular here in Indiana, in rural areas, getting that connectivity for businesses, for consumers, education, healthcare, you name it. What does this do to that rural broadband piece?
So for us, we were on a plan for an 8-year broadband build. We believe we're going to be able to do that now in under 5. And the sole reason for that was the acquisition of Wintec. So we're going to be completed with our broadband build by the end of 2024, passing at that time 30,000 customers in 3 major counties.
Yeah, and it comes at a time where you are in an area that is growing with what's going on at Purdue University. You got the Wabash Heartland Innovation Network, precision agriculture, a lot of focus in that area, which seem to be the timing of this may fit nicely from a business perspective.
It certainly does, and it also really fits really well from a humanitarian perspective, because what we've seen in the last year and the struggles that so many of our fellow Hoosiers have had, that it really brought to the forefront how desperate broadband service is needed. So in light of that, and knowing that we still had to have more time to build the network, we also installed 17 now Wi-Fi solutions, hotspots that are free all over our service territory to kind of provide a little relief. So not only is it an economics play, to your point, it's also a humanitarian play.
Ron Holcomb is the CEO at Tipmont Wintec. Ron, thanks for joining us. I know we'll be following this story in the months ahead.
Thank you very much. Good to see you again.
All right. Well, up next, a global leader in providing security to buildings expands its footprint in Indiana and beyond. We head inside Switzerland-based Dormakaba's grand opening of a state-of-the-art America's Discovery Center. We'll tell you what it's all about. Our Mary Rachel Redmond will have details around Indiana. Here's what's making news now around Indiana. Brought to you by Chapman Heating, Air Conditioning and Plumbing, the man for all seasons, Chapman, chapmanheating.com. Well, it's been 4 years since Swiss lock and security company Dormakaba acquired Best Access Solutions from Stanley Black & Decker for a whopping $725 million. Since establishing its America's headquarters in Indy, Dormakaba says it has been focused on innovation in the security access solutions market. And Inside Indiana Business reporter Mary Rachel Redmond has more on the company's latest edition. Mary Rachel.
Thanks, Gary. Well, Dormakaba continues to raise the bar on a global scale when you talk about its innovative security solutions for everything from airports to stadiums and even government facilities. This week, the Swiss-based company officially introduced its new Customer Discovery Center.
It's our opportunity to show our customers, our distribution channels, all the different solutions that we can pull together in order to help make life safe. We've got everything from where it all started with Frank Best and the small format core up to sophisticated electronic access control solutions. You see our stuff in like the new Rams Stadium that was built over in Los Angeles.
And providing more of a solution and not just a part in a box. And we want to enable that and be part of that story. And that's part of why we've created this here.
Traditionally, Dormakaba would do much of its business at trade shows. But the onset of the pandemic last year changed all that. It was simply out of necessity and a little thinking outside the box that spurred the creation of the Discovery Center.
Well, the concept for the Discovery Center came to be when we realized that the COVID pandemic was going to last for more than a couple of weeks. We wanted to have an infrastructure in order to do that here and do it even in a digital fashion because we really didn't know when this would end.
Trade shows all got canceled last year. So we thought we had all this money set aside and we wanted to highlight the things that were going to be needed moving forward. So we took that money, built this Discovery Center to pull it all together, really to highlight the touchless solutions that we can offer to customers so that entering back into their buildings can be more sanitary.
We're incredibly proud of what we've created. It's that it's really important to us to use this facility and put our best foot forward in the community.
We have a lot of innovation happening here at the corner of Binford and East 75th Street, and we're really excited about the opportunity to be part of this community, to grow as part of it, and to expand out the solutions that we can get out throughout the globe.
Dormakaba currently employs over 600 at its America's headquarters in Indianapolis. In fact, officials tell me they're currently hiring for several dozen positions within the company in the coming weeks. Mary Rachel Redmond, Inside Indiana Business.
All right, Mary Rachel, thank you. Also making headlines around Indiana this week, New Jersey-based J. Nipper & Company says it plans to invest more than $17 million to expand its distribution center in the River Ridge Commerce Center and add about 40 jobs. That's in southeast Indiana. Nipper provides supply chain services to the pharmaceutical industry. The company says the additional space at its facility in Charlestown will include refrigerated space and a drive-in freezer. Chicago-based Ecos Window and Wall says it plans to break ground in the spring in northwest Indiana on a new plant that could create 110 manufacturing jobs. The company says the $11 million investment in Valparaiso will boost production of glass curtain wall products used in high-rise buildings. Well, imagine opening a business during the pandemic. We found 5 Hoosier businesses, including Federal Coffee and Fine Foods in Terre, Haute, who did just that. Stay with us. Well, the COVID-19 pandemic continues to devastate the food industry in many ways. In Indiana, 41% of restaurant owners reporting financial problems so severe they may shutter operations by the end of the year. That according to researchers at Ball State University. But some restaurants, believe it or not, they see opportunity and have actually opened their businesses in the past 5 months. With more on these resilient entrepreneurs, I'm pleased, as always, to be joined by Yelp Senior Regional Lead, Community and Marketing, Brittany Smith. Brittany, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Gary.
Yeah, you know, Brittany, you and I were talking off camera a moment ago. Opening any business, opening a restaurant is exciting, can also be very scary, especially, I would imagine, during a pandemic. But your numbers, you're seeing that more than a few people have decided to take the plunge, even in the face of the pandemic.
Oh, definitely. I mean, even before we dive into these 5 different businesses, there were dozens and dozens that we could have highlighted during this segment. And we're seeing that businesses are still taking that chance. They're being really creative from the get-go with curbside pickup, pick up windows, like diving in from the, the beginning to be creative and meet the circumstances.
Very interesting. You've got 5 great examples from around the state of Indiana. These restaurants, these companies, organizations have opened within the last 5 months, and we begin right here in Indianapolis in the heart of Broad Ripple with 317 Barbecue.
Yeah, right there in downtown Broad Ripple Village. They opened in December, and their reviews are really highlighting the fall off the bone ribs and the brisket. But the things that people are really highlighting is not just about the barbecue, but their sides. They've got a horseradish coleslaw, their potato salad, flaky buttermilk biscuits, and honey. People are really loving comfort food right now, and it's ideal for carry out. And they also have curbside pickup too.
Okay, let's go up to Lafayette for some French inspiration and Reveille Coffee Bar.
Yes. The fun thing about this business right in downtown Lafayette is that you can support multiple businesses under one roof. They're using Tinker Coffee from Indianapolis, as well as Flour Mill Bakery, Mary Lou Donuts, and Smitty Bread Bakery. You can find all of their treats there right at Reveille. And they're located right in the heart of downtown, and people are loving their atmosphere. So maybe you're not eating inside right now, but once COVID is over, that's a great spot to take a laptop and work for a few hours.
Yeah, I love those businesses that really source Indiana products. Okay, let's go to northern Indiana and South Bend for some comfort food. Fat Bird.
Yes, classic Southern comfort food. They opened up in November, and you're going to find things like pimento cheese, fried chicken. Some of their trending items are their laminated biscuits and the America sandwich, which is American cheese, spicy ranch, hot mayo, pickles, piled high, really classic style food. And they've got carry out, online ordering, and curbside. So again, another business that's offering a variety of ways to support them.
That really looks tasty. Okay, going over into my kind of my boyhood home area in the Wabash Valley, Terre Haute Federal Coffee and Fine Foods.
Yeah, they opened up in October, and I actually had a pleasure of checking it out a few months ago, right on Main Street in Terre Haute, and the facade alone is worth checking out. They even have a little walk-up window on the sidewalk where you can walk up and order your coffee, really made from scratch pastries. Folks are also loving the interior there with floor-to-ceiling windows. It's a really beautiful business, and they've also got soups, sandwiches, salads, so kind of all hours of the day you can check out that spot.
Looks like part of a revival, too, going on in downtown Terre Haute. And our last stop, Brittany, is in Speedway, Chechori.
Yes. Chechori just opened up a few months ago. This is an Argentinian eatery, which are really hard to come by in Indiana in general. And they've also got a drive-through. So another fun excuse. You can keep your pajamas on and still support a local business. They've got items that are already prepared for you to take home and eat that are ready, but they've also got dishes that you can pop in the oven. So some of the things that are standing out there are the porchetta, the house-made chorizo. So they're doing a lot of their own meats in-house, and chorizo empanadas are just a few that you can find.
As always, Brittany, a great tour of some great restaurants, some resilient entrepreneurs. As always, Brittany, great to have you with us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Well, coming up, we head to Southeast Indiana to see how technology making a major impact on patient care. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta with details on Decatur County Memorial Hospital's new monitoring system that remotely tracks COVID-19 patients wherever they are. Well, a small hospital in Greensburg has launched technology that allows doctors to monitor patients at home, including those with COVID-19 who don't need the full support of a hospital setting. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta has details. Kylie.
Well, thank you, Gary. The new system uses a medical device that clips to the patient's finger to collect their vitals and the comfort of their home, and it sends that information back to the clinicians at the hospital. Called Massimo Safety Net, the device is made by a California-based company, and it's the major piece of a recent upgrade at Decatur County Memorial Hospital to their patient monitoring system. Here to tell us more about how it's being used at the hospital and at home is Rex McKinney, the President and Chief Executive Officer of Decatur County Memorial Hospital. Rex, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you, Kylie.
All right, we'll get to the device in just a minute, but first, take us back to the early days of the pandemic. Decatur County had one of the highest COVID positive rates per capita in the state. Explain how that really underscored the importance of being able to remotely monitor patients.
Yeah, even prior to the impact of COVID in our community, our leadership team was really exploring a different platform from a patient care monitoring standpoint. We had some needs in the inpatient environment, and we really wanted a platform that would accommodate our inpatient environment, but also with an eye on the future with regards to the needs from an ambulatory standpoint, or those patients do not need to be treated in the hospital, but need to be monitored remotely in some fashion. Little did we know, just a couple months later after implementation of the initial platform, that the demand would be great from a ambulatory monitoring standpoint. So the impact of COVID, as we've seen, as that virus has evolved in the clinical conditions, some patients do not require admission, but need to be monitored very closely due to some other medical issues that they may have, some comorbidities that they may have that could really impact them clinically in a somewhat urgent fashion. So we really felt like there were some additional tools necessary for our physicians and providers to have available from a remote monitoring standpoint. So the Massimo platform proved to be very beneficial, both on the inpatient side, but also equipping our organization to accommodate the ambulatory environment from a remote patient monitoring standpoint.
Okay, so it's called the Massimo Safety Net. Explain the basics of how it works, both at the hospital and also patients that you send home with it.
Yeah, so there's a traditional bedside monitor capabilities. So we place these Massimo devices at every bedside in our inpatient environment. And it's some great technology that monitors a variety of vital signs. So it takes a workload burden off of our clinical and our nursing staff, and allows the nursing staff to improve the workflow at the bedside by integrating those vital signs into our electronic health record. So once a nurse sees the vital signs, takes the vital signs, she can simply push a button, download that data into our electronic health record, which frees up the nurse to spend more time at the bedside. There's also a central monitoring station where if our clinical staff is busy, they can be monitored centrally with alarms set for appropriate parameters. On the ambulatory side, we've seen some great benefit with regards to individuals that need to be monitored closely by our clinical staff. They can be monitored in live time, or we've used it in a method where it can be utilized to trend data. For example, one of our most recent use cases, we had an individual who had COVID, tested positive for COVID. Our physician was a little concerned because the patient was pregnant also. So the physician ordered a monitoring device to be placed on the patient so we could trend that data over time, so the individual, if in case the individual did deteriorate, our clinicians could identify that, reach out to the patient, and assess via the phone. And I have a sample of the device on my wrist right now, which is a very simple device that connects remotely to a mobile device, and that data is transmitted from the mobile device to our central monitoring station, where our qualified nursing staff and physicians can take a look at that data and assess remotely.
Okay, and you're a critical access hospital, so you serve rural areas. And you talked off camera about how this is a win for the local community, and it really demonstrates how they can get great care, great technology close to home. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Absolutely. For rural health environments like Decatur County Memorial Hospital, we are totally committed to serving our community. And to serve our community effectively, we need access to great technology and great care. Technology is so important. So to be able to implement this technology in our environment, Decatur County region, we serve approximately 26,000 individuals in our immediate county. And some of them are in remote areas. So that infrastructure around broadband is becoming increasingly important in the healthcare space. So we're pleased to be able to enhance our technology to monitor remotely, but also invest in the technology for the inpatient needs here within the hospital So we're very pleased that we're able to invest in this technology, have the latest and greatest technology available for our clinicians and physicians, but also for those individuals in our community that require a little more close monitoring.
So you mentioned the broadband capability and how some of your residents are in remote rural areas. So is that a barrier? Do some of them not have broadband, so they're not able to use this device?
Yes, in some parts of our county, broadband access is a challenge. So we have reached out to our local broadband provider, and we are actually working with them very closely to invest in some technology that will enhance the broadband capabilities in certain remote areas of our county. So that is a real challenge for the state of Indiana as well as nationally for rural health providers. So we're very pleased at Decatur County Memorial Hospital we're able to invest in that type of technology to enhance the broadband capabilities of our region to ensure that individuals have great access to care via remote technology.
And much of this upgrade was paid for with a grant, correct? Given, I think, right in the thick of the pandemic as well.
Yeah, we were so blessed to receive an FCC grant of nearly $700,000 to enhance our telehealth capabilities. So yes, some of the remote monitoring investment did come from those dollars. We've also invested in additional technology that will allow us to provide remote clinic capabilities. We really feel like we can provide greater access to care for our local employers and help drive down local employer healthcare costs by reducing the time away from work for clinic visits and that sort of thing. So we're very pleased that we've been able to make a significant investment in telehealth technology as well as remote monitoring technologies to improve the health and wellness of our entire community.
All right, Rex. Well, congratulations on the upgrade. Rex McKinney, President and CEO of Decatur County Memorial Hospital. Thanks again for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you.
Gary, back to you.
Great story. Thanks very much, Kylie. Well, we're preparing to drop the third episode of my new Business and Beyond podcast this week on Monday. My guest is DePaul University President Dr. Lori White. She's the first woman and first person of color to lead that university, the only African American to lead an Indiana university right now. She's a trailblazer and also has some musical talents.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen, or will understand it better by and by. There's a bright side somewhere.
Dr. Lori White, no doubt a gifted singer, but also a trailblazing educator. Her family are trailblazers as well. We'll talk to her about her love for wearing pink tennis shoes, tooling around in her convertible sports car, and her relationship with Condoleezza Rice. To get the Business and Beyond podcast, just go to Apple or wherever you find your podcasts. When we come back, a conversation with Indiana Commissioner for Higher Education, Teresa Lubbers, her perspective on the importance of Hoosier students earning college credits in high school and how that can pay off big time when it comes to financing college costs. Well, the payoff for students who earn college credit while in high school, a new Indiana Commission for Higher Education report says they are more likely to enroll in college and succeed once they get there. Add to that, early college credit can save Hoosier families and the state substantial dollars. For more on early college credits and the state of higher education, pleased as always to be joined by Indiana Commission for Higher Education Commissioner Teresa Lubbers. Teresa, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Gary.
Let's talk about early college credit, getting college credit while in high school. Today, it seems to be everywhere. It's very commonplace. It hasn't been around that long. Talk about the importance of it to the student, but also from a financial standpoint, what it means to families and also the state of Indiana.
Yes, we just released our 2021 early college credit report, and it does validate all those things you just said. It ensures that students are more ready for their journey after high school. more likely to enter, more likely to complete, and more likely to complete college on time. About 64% of our graduating students from high school are graduating with some sort of early college credit, dual credit, or AP. And yes, it comes with a great savings to families and to the state of Indiana as well. The tune of about $160 million annually, of which about $80 million of that is benefits students and families, and about $78 million is a benefit to the state for getting those college credits while you're in high school.
And importantly, I assume this is a nice boost to your goal of getting a much greater percentage of Hoosiers with that credential or education beyond high school.
I appreciate you bringing that up, because 2025 is going to be here before you know it. And our big goal of having 60% of Hoosiers having a quality credential beyond high school and a certificate, an industry certification, a 2 or a 4-year degree is coming very quickly. And so we are doubling down on all of our efforts to make sure that students understand the importance. And the importance is really because that kind of preparation is really aligned to the needs of the economy and to get a good job.
Is that alignment piece, because we hear companies, we hear businesses talk a lot about that, as well as educators, that alignment between the needs of business, the needs and what kind of education they're getting. Do you sense Indiana's on the right path when it comes to that alignment piece? Absolutely. One of the ways I would measure this is our new strategic plan at the commission is called Reaching Higher in a State of Change. And one of our three the metrics that we use is that every college degree and program would have embedded career relevance. And we're designing that career relevance in concert with our employers in the state of Indiana. The Governor's Workforce Cabinet, which was created in 2018, is really focused on this alignment between early childhood education and lifelong learning and meeting the needs of employers. So I think that the siloed kind of thinking we had in the past has been replaced by a commitment to making sure people have an opportunity to have a meaningful career and life. I think another example of that important connection between education and workforce, you typically give a state of education address. This year you're going to be doing that, but in conjunction you're also going to have essentially a workforce address as well. Talk about the new format when talking about that state of education and workforce. Yes, I've always done a state of higher education address, and we decided this was a good year to do the state of education and the workforce. So I will be doing it together with Katie Jenner, who is the new Secretary of Education, and Fred Payne, who's the Commissioner of the Department of Workforce Development. And we'll be focused in a strategic way on where are we as a state to meet the needs of individuals for personal prosperity and meeting the needs of employers. So it's the first time we've done something like this, but we think that it's the right time to do it, and we'll focus on the right areas of concern and opportunities for Hoosiers. I know there have been a number of things that have transpired and are part of that state of education, state of workforce now, Governor's Workforce Cabinet among them, and these workforce readiness grants that began, I think, in 2017 or thereabouts. And the CARES Act funding has come to play here. Talk about these workforce readiness grants. Are they making an impact? The Workforce Ready Grant is a part of under the Next Level Jobs. And we have the Workforce Ready Grant, which is really provides tuition-free certificates in high demand 5 sectors, so that an individual who needs to come back and be skilled up and get a skill that meets the needs of the economy today can do so. And it's tuition-free. We also have an employer training grant where the state provides funding for employers to train their incumbent or their new workers. Under the Workforce Ready Grant, we now have over 21,000 Hoosiers who have completed a high demand quality certificate. And the measure of success is that the median annual wage gain for that is $6,800. Under the Employer Training Grant, the median annual wage gain is about close to $6,000 as well. So not only are they getting the skills they need, but they're getting a bump and they're getting a better job that pays them more money. So we think that not only do we have 21,000 Hoosiers who have completed one, but we have 41,000 Hoosiers who are enrolled and are prepared to actually complete those certificates in the near future. Yeah, final question. I know you'll get into some specifics, obviously, in the State of Education address, but as you look at that state of education, where things are a critical point, perhaps, in particular, coming out of the pandemic, you know, a lot of focus right now on where the state's economy is, where it is going coming out of the pandemic, how workforce will react. Is the timing of this, in particular, critical?
Well, it is. And I think, we're coming out of this very well in terms of unemployment rate dropping. But what has become abundantly clear during this time is the disparity that exists between those who have education and those who don't, those who, especially low income and minority students. We've been making a lot of progress with closing the achievement gap. It's safe to say that that progress has stalled during 2020, and we have to redouble our efforts to make sure that this opportunity for a better job is for all, not just for some.
That's some great perspective. Teresa Lubbers, the commissioner, the Indiana Commission for Higher Education, as always. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Well, Indianapolis-based Checkpoint has unveiled the nominees for its 2021 Mira Awards, honoring the best in tech in Indiana. The nonprofit Growth Accelerator for the state's tech sector says this year's event will be held virtually April 22nd. It includes more than 120 nominees across 13 categories, including the recently added Pandemic Pivot of the Year. The nominees were chosen by a group of 52 independent judges, including company founders, CEOs, and presidents. TechPoint CEO Michael Angelaire says this year's nominees are the most diverse in the more than 20-year history of the awards. For a look at all of the nominees, you can go to our website, InsideIndianaBusiness.com. Well, one of the iconic faces of the Indiana Pacers franchise over the past 3 decades, he calls it a career. Inside Indiana sports contributor Bill Benner goes one-on-one with Donnie Walsh, his proudest moments, greatest achievements, and what's next. That's when we come back. Well, he still has the accent of a native New Yorker, but what might Indianapolis in general and the Indiana Pacers in particular have done without the influence of this man who decided to make Indiana his home for the past 40 years? Bill Benner has more in this week's Inside Indiana Sports. Bill.
Thanks, Gary. And of course, we're referencing the Pacers' longtime general manager and later franchise president, Donnie Walsh, who turned the Pacers into a mid-major market model of success that would in turn lead to the building of Conseco and now Bankers Life Fieldhouse. And Walsh, who had been recently serving as a consultant, has just moved into retirement, and we're delighted that he could join us on the program. Donnie, welcome. And again, I'm honored that you could make time to join us.
Well, it's great to be with you and WFYI today, Bill. Thank you.
Well, Donnie, again, an incredible tenure with the Indiana Pacers. You arrived in 1984 as an assistant coach, elevated to general manager in 1986, and you quickly made the decision that would really help. That was the first building block of success when you drafted Reggie Miller over a guy named Steve Alford that everybody in Indiana wanted you to take. But when you drafted Reggie and then built the pieces around him, that was really transformative for the Pacers.
Well, I actually was my second draft. The first draft I took Chuck Person, who I got loudly booed for in the arena because we held the draft in the arena. And he turned out to be Rookie of the Year, so I didn't, that turned out all right for me. And then, of course, second was Reggie, I believe, and Steve Alford was in that draft. And rightfully, I think people wanted me to take Steve Alford. He had a terrific career at IU, and they won the national championship. But I just thought that his game was, suited for college, and that Reggie was going to be the same kind of player, but in the pros. And so I made that decision. And I think, in my own mind, I think Steve did the right thing by ending up being a coach, because he became a very good coach.
Well, Donnie, and then you around Reggie, you really built an incredible team. You brought in the Davis boys, Rick Smits, Derek McKee, Jalen Rose, Mark Jackson, the list goes on. But in 1994, you hired your former college buddy, your fellow New York, Larry Brown. And Larry Brown was again, the right guy at the right time for the building of this franchise.
He was because we needed somebody that could put these guys together in a way that they could win in the NBA. And Larry Brown was that kind of guy. He was a teacher to begin with, which is kind of what we have now with Nate Bjork, and I think he'll do a great job. And the team needed Larry at that time. Now, they didn't like playing for Larry, but when it finished, they all said, well, I learned more basketball from that guy, but boy, I hated every minute of it. Because Larry was a driver, and I thought he did a wonderful job. His first 2 years here, he was in Eastern Conference Finals. And we had not, I think up to that point, I don't know how many, I don't think we won a few playoff games before that, but we never got past the first round. So it was like, not past the first round, bam, instant Eastern playoffs. And we competed at a very high level. And I thought that kind of broke the ice for us.
And then in 1998, another Larry, and again, what a hire. Larry Bird from French Lick, Indiana, certainly the Indiana State, Boston Celtics, and then you brought him in as coach, and 3 years later, the Pacers were in the NBA Finals against the Lakers. Larry Bird was, again, an inspired decision.
Well, I had met with Larry, and I was so impressed with his knowledge of the game, and I mean from a coaching standpoint, what he would do. It covered the whole waterfront. And the one thing he said to me that I knew this guy's ready to do this is he said, well, by the way, Donnie, I got to get 2 good assistants because I've never coached before. And that's exactly what I was thinking, was he needs 2 good assistants to help him with this. And so he got Rick Carlisle, who obviously has turned into a very good coach, and Dick Harder, who I had before with Jack Ramsey, and who was probably the best defensive coach in the league. So that combination of those guys knowing they had to help Larry knowing he needed the help, and Larry's presence and knowledge as a head coach, I mean, the players loved it. Everybody that played on that team, I think, really enjoyed the experience.
Donnie, we got about a minute left, and I know that's hard to sum up, but all of that success really led to, it provided the groundswell of support for the construction of Conseco, now Bankers Life Fieldhouse. And I know you were instrumental in making sure that it had that retro Indiana feel to, again, a great, great basketball venue.
Well, I did, yeah. I voiced my opinion that we should do a retro look because of the tradition of basketball in this state, and this could incorporate all of it. And it actually ended up with the architects coming up with even better than I thought they could do. And so I think that it made it very, very different in the league, and it opened up to accolades in the league. Everybody loved playing here. Everybody loved the ambience of the arena and the way it was built, because the minute you go right down to the floor in the end zones rather than have a hockey situation, it's a very intimate crowd, and that's the way it turned out. And of course, when that happened, then we were bringing in a lot of people, and Indiana became a very, very tough place to get wins. So that was everything I wanted. And we had a lot of excitement for the people in the city, and we had great fans, so it was a win-win for everybody.
Well, Donnie, you're an icon. You've had such a lasting imprint on the Pacers franchise, on the city of Indianapolis. We're glad you decided to come and join us and be a Hoosier, and we wish you nothing but the best going forward. Thanks for being on the show with us.
Okay, thank you for having me, Bill. I've enjoyed every minute I've been in Indianapolis, and this is one of them, so thank you.
Thank you, Donnie. And Gary, back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. Well, Indiana Secretary of State Connie Lawson this week announced she will resign from office. That will end 32 years of public service. Lawson first appointed Secretary of State in 2012 by then Governor Mitch Daniels. She ran and won re-election in 2014, 2018 as well, is the longest serving Secretary of State in Indiana history. She also served 16 years in the Indiana Senate. Lawson says she's leaving office to focus on family and health, but will remain on the job until Governor Holcomb selects her successor. And I'll be right back after this. Stay with us. Coming up next week, Indianapolis-based IVM Inc. is a smart vending company with a product designed to distribute and track handheld devices and scanners. President Mike Pitts has details on a smart vault. He'll also comment on the future of work in Indiana. Plus, learn how Ball State's Institute for Digital Intermedia Arts has developed a platform that incorporates virtual reality into business meetings and online classes. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures with support from WFYI Productions.